Good morning. I'm currently in Greenville, South Carolina, home of, well, I don't know what it's home of, but I want to talk about the media and high school English. So, when I went to grade school and middle school and high school, my English class was always a literature and writing class. It was mainly about reading classic American novels like Moby Dick or books by John Steinbeck, and then writing essays about them. One, the topic stories about, writing about the book we were reading. And two, they were always this kind of persuasive style essay. The themes of John Steinbeck represented, the transitory state of America during, the post-bellum years in the Midwest, or whatever, pyramid of piffle that you generate with your double-spaced font when you're in 11th grade, enlarging the period to stretch those sentences longer onto each page. It's nonsense. And because of that, it created in my mind an image that writing was ostensibly writing about literature. And I had this idea that writing was boring, that writing was just writing about other books, and it was just writing these persuasive essays where I'm trying to, say that, Moby Dick is some sort of allegory for conquering the inner man. It was always the same thing. When in reality, it wasn't until much later on in college, that I realized that writing has nothing to do with literature. There is writing, and good writing can be about anything. It can be about sports, it can be about finance, it can be about, what happened to you yesterday. And then there's literature, and thinking critically and complexly about subjects and understanding and unpacking complex ideas and aesthetic criteria of novels, nonfiction, novellas. These are two different things. And that in American education, they're lumped together. And so every child is brought up thinking that writing is boring because you have to write about literature, when in reality they have nothing to do with each other. You can be a great writer and know nothing about literature. And you can be a great analyzer of texts and understanding themes and deducing, post-constructionist, modernist, whatever you want. But also be a really terrible writer. And in fact, most professors, English professors, are terrible writers. They have no idea what makes something a good piece of literature, or how to generate a good piece of literature. They can recognize it, but they can't create it themselves. My point being is that it created in my mind that writing was always about literature, when in reality it wasn't. And the media is a little bit about the same way, because growing up, the way we consume the news and news media is mainly political. That's what the news covers. 80% of coverage, I would say, just if we were ballparking it, is about politics. It's whatever the president's saying. It's whatever Congress is doing. And we get this association, this is the deep resonating idea that news media is inherently political, both in its outlook, that's what its subject is about. So when you become a journalist, you're mainly covering politics. But two, media, because it covers politics so much, we start to view media through a political lens. Well, we have liberal media companies and conservative media companies, and they're partisan, and they have ideologies, and the New York Times tries to advance liberal ideology, and the Fox News tries to advance a conservative ideology. When in reality, that's not the bias I see that news media has. The bias that I see news media have, having worked now for 4 or 5 years at the heart of it, in the belly of the beast of New York City, the national news media, is the bias is towards sensationalism and laziness. And that any sort of system that requires daily output of news, there's no news that is the same every day. The intensity of the things happening in the world is not a continual trajectory upward. Some days are exciting, some days are boring. But just as cable news has 24 hours they need to fill on TV, so does our modern digital media news, where we're consuming Facebook feeds and Twitter feeds and Instagram feeds. The digital media news companies are designed around constantly putting out content day after day after day, because the algorithms incentivize putting out content day after day. Just as YouTubers feel incentivized to make daily vlogs about this and that because the algorithm favors daily content, the algorithm favors daily news content. And so media companies are economically incentivized to scale, if they want to grow, to put out content day after day after day, cutting up videos, cutting up sound bites. And this creates a bias towards whatever soundbite or sensational little headline they can game or click or jimmy together to get you to watch. And a lot of the time, the bias is also towards laziness. Because they have to do things day after day, creating little Facebook videos, Instagram videos, Twitter headlines, little articles of the moment, du jour, articles du jour, nobody has time to really do in-depth pieces, at least for the majority. And so you get a lot of superficial, very cheap veneer, sensational things. And that's the bias the media has, is that we have a system that incentivizes laziness and sensationalism. And that most media companies aren't driven by partisan ideology. It's not so much that New York Times is trying to advance a liberal ideology and activism, or Fox News is trying to advance a conservative ideology. It's that they just recognize they can play the system, that if they just lean a little bit towards gaming their headlines to be more conservative, they can light a fire of inexhaustible rage, amongst conservatives by telling you, oh, can you believe Obama wore a tan suit? And the New York Times or the Washington Post can do the same thing by saying what outrageous thing Trump did this week today. My point is, if I can get around to it and actually be articulate for once, is that most media companies are not ideologically driven, at least in the political sense. They're ideologically driven sensationally, superficially, lazily. Those are the biases. And just as the biases we assume when we were growing up, at least in the United States, about writing and literature, and thinking that writing is always about literature, because that's just what we grew up associating with. We, at least I, grew up associating the media with politics because they cover politics so much. But that doesn't actually make media inherently political. It's just a quick heuristic to getting clicks and views because politics is always happening. There's always something new every day they can cover that way. Anyway, just a thought for this morning. If you guys found this moderately interesting or even minutely interesting, click like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. You can watch another video every day of idiosyncratic takes on the media. Thanks for watching, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.